Thank you for joining us. We're continuing our conversation here with Dr. Thom Reilly, the Chancellor of the Nevada System of Higher Education. And Tom, one thing we didn't talk about is research. We've recently, both UNLV and UNR are now both R1 status. First off, what is R1 status?
Well, Carnegie comes up with a classification, and the highest level is R1, very high research, that basically is limited to the top 130 higher education institutions nationally out of about 4,000. So it's a pretty elite and prestigious category. And part of that classification deals with the amount of research dollars that the university or institution brings in, as well as the amount of PhD level or doctoral level individuals that graduate from their institution. So this year we were extremely pleased to have both UNLV and UNR designated in that kind of elite group, and that really translates into new research opportunities, attracting some of the best and brightest faculty who want to be part of that elite group of research institutions.
How many research institutions are we talking about that have R1 status?
It's about 130 of about 4,000.
Wow.
So it is a pretty elite group. And that's a fluid number. So I mean, they go in and out. So when we were designated as part of the 130, several institutions fell out. And we're kind of on the bubble there. So we need to ensure that we continually have this investment from the legislature and elsewhere of those research dollars, that we're ensuring that we're bringing those dollars and producing graduate level students.
And what's NSHE's role in getting both those universities up to that R1 level? Is it more of a funding thing, making sure the funding's in place, or
yeah, well, I mean, it is those universities earned that. UNR and UNLV, it was their students and faculty and presidents and legislators and regents and everyone over a long period of time. I mean, UNLV started this dream, if you will, about becoming an R1 under Dr. Carol Harder years ago. People laughed at her, like, really? UNLV becoming an R1? And they accelerated their pace and became very strategic, like UNR, about how to obtain that. It's very competitive. So yeah, I mean, part of that, it's been donors, it's been students and faculty, it's been legislators. I mean, this past legislative session and during this session, we have capacity building grants that have been started there are initiatives at our institutions. Simply put, at UNR and UNLV, it's focused on research, and at our community colleges and state colleges, it's workforce. But those dollars are being targeted to bring in faculty, to bring in new research areas in order to sustain it. Now that we have it, we have to sustain and make sure we keep it, right?
Right.
And that is a lot of hard work.
Yep. You mentioned funding. Let's talk about the state formula itself. An ongoing debate is the north-south equitability in funding in state general, but also, of course, in higher education. Our current state funding formula, is it equitable, north-south?
Well, the legislature made changes in 2013. It was a committee that was formed that brought in national experts and others to look at transforming how the funding formula works and how it operates. And what that change has done is that it has changed from more of an output model to an outcome model. So instead of measuring students enrolled, it's on student completions. This is something nationally the federal government has been pushing. This is something that best practices. It is something Nevada should have done and rightfully did with the legislature to develop this. And so basically what that does is students, part of the formula is to look at weighted student credit hours. It's to look at course completions. So this session, if you have an F for non-attendance, then it doesn't count. Right. So it's not degree, it's actually on course completions. So the model was intended to be more equitable, more transparent, and a bit easier, because it's still a little complicated now, but it was very complicated from what I understand before 2013. So to answer your question is that Since 2013, and there's been some tweaks and changes. For example, last session, we added, the legislature added a career technical education and adjustment around that. And any model, you need to continue to tweak it.
And is that benefiting the community college
Colleges.
structure more
Yes,
so?
that's most of
Gotcha.
the community colleges.
Yeah.
So it is more transparent, equitable, and fair model. I mean, if you look at, there's analysis done by our staff, the Nevada Faculty Alliance, which is the union, and the Legislative Council Bureau all looked at it. And for the most intents purposes, it did what it said it did. It moved money, particularly from the north, benefiting more from Nevada State College, UNLV, and CSN. But I truly believe that in any model or any funding formulas that we should continue to look at it. I had some conversations early on with legislators about perhaps looking at it again. Rightfully so, the legislators said that their primary focus at this legislative session is K through 12. They're still struggling with that. Right. I was hoping maybe for an interim study to look at that, to also look at how it impacts rural colleges. I mean, part of our funding formula is actually based upon growth. We are growing. We have lots of room to grow. That's not the case out east, right? Where growth has hampered, and if that turns here, then the funding formula will put many of our institutions at risk.
And Tom, when we're projecting growth, are we projecting residents within the state, or do we think we're getting a lot more out-of-state residents coming into our system?
Both. I mean, when you look at affordability, which we have to be very concerned with, you look at where we fare, particularly with the western states, we fare very positively on the affordability ranking, both at our community colleges and higher education. In California, they simply can't get in. So there's state colleges, there's long waits in order to get in, and their research institutions. So we definitely see some benefit of that also. But we have a lot of room. We rank 49th, as I mentioned before, in the percent of 18 to 24-year-olds who go into higher education. There is a lot, I tell presidents all the time, there is a lot of room to reach out, particularly when we have a mission of any type of higher education. We're not talking 4-year degrees, we're talking certificates. So there's a lot of room for growth. So I don't see us having that model. But after 10 years, I would think that we'd want to revisit. Let's bring in national folks, let's look at how it's been operating and see if any changes are needed.
Yeah. I know Governor Sandoval's goal for 2025 was 60% of our population would have some form of post-secondary credential. Do you think we can get to that by 2025?
I think as we talk about the importance of our economy, unemployment's low. We've tried to align ourselves with the governor's analysis on the top highest needed professions and certificates, trying to do a lot more outreach on that, having a lot more conversations around that. If I can also jump back about the north-south issue, I think another important change that we've seen at the last 2 legislative sessions has been the buildings, which I think has been always concerned that a lot of the buildings were up north versus down south. That has seemed to be shifted. I mean, if we look at the top 3 priorities of the Nevada Board of Regents, were the only 3 that advanced to the legislature, which included one Nevada State College education building, a joint venture by Nevada State College and CSN on a health sciences building, and then an engineering building at UNLV. The top 2 made it into the governor's budget. We still have some hopes for UNLV.
And I'd be remiss if we didn't bring up the medical school expansion too, as a building too. Where's the status of that project?
Well, so what's in the budget at the legislature is about $14.3 million in operational support for the med school. The legislature committed to the full operation of 60 students per class. So this $14 million that's in the budget that I'm very optimistic will pass is the further commitment that we'll have a fully funded med school. The building we have right now, which is near UMC on Shadow Lane, accommodates that. So, but the discussion is that we need to grow more. I mean, we need more physicians, we need more residencies, and so there's discussion about the building, which has been a challenge as far as moving forward. But there are some financing models that have been discussed and been presented to the legislature that, I'm optimistic that there'll be movement to grow the program. But the the commitment we have through the legislature, the current building is suffice, but we definitely need to explore more initiatives around building out and developing a new med school.
Gotcha. Tom, thank you so much. We really
Thank you.
appreciate your time.
Appreciate it.